Hey there, welcome to Blooming Into You. I'm Kristen, I'm your host today, and today we are at episode 10 of the first season. And this topic is all about trauma and addiction and how addiction is created from trauma and just what we should know about addiction as it relates to again, trauma and how, you know, to look at it in terms of, with a lens of compassion more than contempt and judgment toward people. So, as I mentioned in a previous episode, addiction is a persistent need and compulsive dependence upon a substance, an activity, or thinking. Relating to trauma, addictions to substances, people, or processes is about filling this void that was left by the abuse or trauma or neglect as a child. And it's like this big hole there where a person feels like it's like a hole in your heart where you feel like you have to seek external love, validation, support, anything like that. And it can create addictive processes or habits, behaviors as a result, because, we're all seeking love. We all want love. And when we feel like we're without it and we didn't attach well as a child to our caregiver, um, we seek you know we seek and try to find love or support, connection in some way. We got disconnected from ourselves and then disconnected from other people, and it makes us change the way we think about ourselves and the world around us in not such a good way. And so we abandoned ourselves because we had to we had to seek love and other things from other people. And so in trying to connect with ourselves again, we sort of dissociate from ourselves, and then we seek it in other people, and we just try to get them to love us, see us. We try to earn love from people. And if we can't do that, we want to numb out. And there are lots of parts of us, which I'll talk about a little later, that take over when we're children, that create this seeking for external validation, numbing, dissociation, love, things like that. And so there are a lot of habits, and a lot of them are not healthy for us. Now, we do have habits that are healthy for us. That's still not going to ever fill that void until we heal that within us and heal our own attachments back to ourselves. And that happens through relationship with people in our lives, therapists, coaches, other mental health professionals. It could just be a friend or family member, really, that helps you, trust again, learn how to love yourself again and feel secure in your attachment. But until then, we can develop behaviors and habits to give us a feeling of love. And there's a positive intention behind us doing it. The positive intention is, I want to be loved. I want to belong. I want to feel safe. The way I go about it may not be healthy, though, and that's when addictions can come into play. Okay, so there is an impaired ability to regulate emotions, behaviors, and thoughts, which leads to this inability to resist impulses and can then lead to those abnormal behaviors. And they have maladaptive and destructive outcomes, obviously, if you're addicted to things that are not healthy for you. So at first, using addictive substances is a choice, but later on, it is no longer a choice for people. And this is really important to understand in the context of how we view addicts. Often we will look at them in contempt, and we'll look at them like they're losers or failures, or, they just want to be slackers and they want to be addicts. It's not a choice. And the reason they did it initially was a choice, but it was also motivated by, again, that internal void and needing to, you know, compensate, needing to fill the void with something. Now, people can do this with things, right? They can do this with work too. I mean, so we've got all kinds of things. I won't list everything that can be used because some of them can be seen as good, but there are different kinds. There's like, workaholism, there's perfectionism, there's being like a taskmaster, there's being a service person, like a overly subservient person. We have all these trauma reactions, and in those reactions, we have behaviors like a people pleaser has more of a fawning, submissive reaction and wants to please in order to earn that love because, again, their connection to themselves was broken and their connection to their caregiver was ruptured at a young age. And now they're seeking to please in order to get love. And these things can all cross each other, right? So I can be a people pleaser and I can be an alcoholic too. So we have like the more like, socially acceptable workhorse type parts, we're going to call them, of us that take over and, make sure that we are looking good to the world. The social acceptance, the external validation we get from the world for being the smartest, the best athlete, the best worker, the most pleasing. That's that gives us a lot of external validation, and that's what we want to use to fill this hole, right? But then there's other kinds. There's like love addiction, there's sex addiction, there's porn addiction, there's video gaming addiction, there's scrolling on your phone addiction, there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's food, there's eating disorders, there's exercise. And exercise may be a good adaptation, right? But if it's used to fill this hole because you think you're going to get more external validation if you have a good body or something, that's again an adaptation you're using to fill that hole. And it also calms your nervous system. So I'm going to talk more about that and where the brain's involved as we go along as well. But you can kind of sense, I think, that like we do these things to get an end goal of either love, belonging, and safety, or just like a sense of peace and calm in ourselves and feeling pleasure and happiness. And, all these things can contribute to feeling good and being seen as good for a while until we become too out of control with our addictions. And then, we get judged. But it's all in an effort for your body to feel good. Okay? Feel good. And I'll explain later why this is important for the body and why it becomes less and less of a choice over time that you consciously get to make. You become an addict and it's no longer a choice. I mean, it can become a choice to recover and heal, yes. But when you're in the process and you're in the active addiction, it's not a choice anymore after a certain time. Okay. So the use of psychoactive substances is a worldwide public health priority. And the repercussions that extend from the individual also start with the individual, extend to the family, the society, the community at large. And so it starts to, destroy the family, and it affects the society, right? Because we have a lot of people who are addicts and they can't contribute to the workforce, and they are needing our help, and we have to give them money. And and again, this is not to shame addicts. It's just saying this is a worldwide problem. It's a public health problem. It's a real problem that we have. And I think the more we point our fingers and shame and blame at people rather than understanding that they need help, then it just exacerbates and increases this problem. Now, I know that it can be difficult when someone's in active addiction to get them to see things reasonably and to stop their addiction. That is not something that is easy, and that's very difficult for family and friends to deal with. And so I'm not saying, just let them be addicted and like feel sorry for them. Just have compassion and understand that there's a reason for it. It doesn't mean that they don't have to get help when they're ready, and that's on them to do. But it's just the shaming and the name calling or the, bad mouthing addicts is not helpful for them, because it's not going to help them get out of it any faster to be shamed, because shame is already such a huge component in addiction anyway. So, primary care physician Gabor Mate is a, world-renowned addiction, ADHD doctor, and he also does a lot with trauma. And many of you have seen his videos or read his books or something. He's amazing. But his birthday is the same as mine. I just found out. I'm so excited. Anyway, but he says that addiction is any behavior that gives a person temporary relief and pleasure, but also has negative consequences, and to which the individual will return time and again. right? So, even though there's negative consequences, the person will still return to that behavior because it does give that temporary relief and pleasure. And I'm going to go into why that's not always the case in a minute, but it does happen. And this will make the person, strive for that, at least that initial relief and pleasure and temporary relief and pleasure, even if it doesn't last very long, but they will seek it out because it feels good. It feels good. It feels good to be numb. It feels good to, it relieves your anxiety, especially if you're in social situations. It makes you feel a little bit hopeful for a little while that, things can get better in your life, things like that. So anyway, according to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, addiction is a treatable chronic medical disease. Let's look at this as an actual disease, please. I know people say that and people scoff at that sometimes, but it is, according to this American Society of Addiction Medicine, it is a medical disease involving complex interactions among brain circuits, genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experiences. Okay, so there's a lot that's going on when it comes to addiction. It's not just one and done. There's several different interactions in your entire system and in your entire environment. So when an addict takes a drug, drinks alcohol, eats sugary foods, has sex, watches porn, shops, gambles, smokes cigarettes, plays video games, on and on, right? The brain releases a huge amount of dopamine, more than gets released in a normal way with just normal pleasurable activities. The brain releases it and then it realizes it released too much. So it reduces the dopamine production. So there's always like a feedback in a lot of these parts of our brains and bodies. And it reduces the dopamine in an attempt to normalize the sudden increase in the dopamine because the body needs dopamine. We need painkillers in order to, when we go into shock or when we're actually in danger or when our leg gets cut. But if we're constantly supplying it with, drugs and alcohol that increase the dopamine, it doesn't think we need dopamine. So it stops making it work as well. So when you go into a surgery and you have to have, I don't know, 45 gallons of, it's not even a measurement, but 45 gallons of like painkillers in order to, or sedation in order to do your procedure. If you are an addict and you are used to drinking a lot or, taking drugs or doing things that increase your dopamine level, it's not going to be as efficient for you when you actually need it, like when you're in surgery or when you're recovering from a procedure. So, this is something to pay attention to as well, because it's really decreasing your body's effectiveness at using something that you definitely do need at times and will maybe need as you get older if you have more medical issues. And so when you're using dopamine, releasing agents, it's going to be harder for your body to do that naturally later. So over time, consistent substance abuse severely does limit the person's ability to feel pleasure at all. Because again, that dopamine isn't going to be ready to fire off as much anymore if you're constantly giving it something that's kind of wearing it out. It's like almost like a dopamine crash. You like watched porn and then you get all high and then you crash, and you need another hit, right? So you keep hitting it. Well, then the body's effectiveness just, wears out. And making that wears out. So, and again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of shame associated with addiction, and it can be hard to remember that it is a disease. So the reasons that people start to consume addictive substances stems from their trauma, right? And the addict feels shame for using the substance, and society scapegoats and shames addicts for not getting it together, right? Getting it together. It's such a slippery slope from being a non-addict to becoming an addict. However, no one does choose addiction. You don't think the first time you drink something or take a drug, you're going to just go into a place where you become an addict. And certainly the first time you do any of that, you're not going to become an addict. It's just when it feels so good, when you felt so bad and you feel so bad all the time, it's easy to keep consuming that. And then some things are more addictive than others, so you can get hooked faster on certain drugs than others. But over time and consistently using it, you know, it becomes an addiction, and addiction hijacks the survival pathways in the brain, like the food, water, and sleep pathways, and it takes over. So it's not, since it's working at the, like, the part of a part of the brain that's survival based. It's not a conscious, logical part of the brain. It's like a more emotional or deeper, older part of the brain that's more like the primal brain. And so when it gets hijacked and the addiction starts taking over, it becomes less of a choice. Like, you can't consciously choose to stop if all of a sudden your survival depends on whatever you're addicted to. So that's another really intricate way that the brain can decide that it's going to just be in charge of this now. You're not in charge of this anymore. I am. So when we have developmental trauma, we feel shameful and bad about ourselves and the world around us. So using the drugs or alcohol changes how we feel about ourselves. It becomes an adaptation, an adaptive coping strategy, we're going to call it, in order to make our brains and nervous systems feel better or numb out for a little bit. Excuse me. No one thinks they will become addicted, right? The substance numbs out intense emotions, intrusive inner critic thoughts, shame, and it eases that anxiety. So we can feel better about ourselves and kind of like we fit in, people say that alcohol, decreases your inhibitions and it makes you feel in and you feel more confident and courageous and just happy, because you're like the, you know, center of attention at the party, because you can now talk and chat because you had the alcohol or the drugs, and it gets you into this place of like, oh, all of my social anxiety is now pushed away, and now I can be my true self and I can come out and be so great and everyone loves me now. And it's very addictive psychologically that way, right? Like, you want to feel good all the time, and like, again, we're always seeking that external validation. So alcohol or drugs helps us feel better about ourselves and like we're good enough and we belong in the crowd. And so then all of a sudden we get all this great attention and validation. And that's what we've been seeking in our hearts since we had the first, attachment wound from childhood. So, it just makes you feel good. Like, finally the world accepts me. Finally, I'm good enough for a little while, right? The alcohol kind of, wears off and then you feel bad, but then, there's always another time to do that and feel good again for a while. Alcohol is like your best friend in the beginning, but later it's your worst enemy. So, this is not the fix to feeling good in yourself forever. Okay. It's not, but it's explains and gives a reason for why trauma survivors become addicted. And I think that's really important to be aware of. Like, it's not just people, like I said, people wanting to be, these horrible, like, lazy people or something, or like people who don't have, good senses of themselves or anything. It's coming from a real important, strong compulsion. It's not coming from this decision to become a dreg of society. It's coming from a place of wounding and wanting to feel normal, wanting to feel okay in this world that was, you know, made a very, very difficult and challenging place for people to live in. And then they're just trying to survive and do the best they can. And I really, really want to really say that part, because we need more compassion for ourselves and for other people. And all of us have made mistakes, and all of us have done things we're not so proud of. And even if you're proud of yourself for being the best worker in your whole company, and that's, more socially acceptable, it's still an extreme thing to do that's not based in your authentic core self, which I will talk about more in a little bit here, but it's still doing something to avoid pain. And so just because you're, the star athlete or the best, project manager in your company, that's great. That's socially acceptable. You're an Iron Man. You're like the best athlete, right? You're just the best at this. Are you doing it because you love it? You might love the attention you get for it and feeling like you're worthy and you fit in, but are you doing it for the right reasons, right? So is it any really better than, doing drugs and having disordered eating habits? they're both part of a same internal family system that's, kind of fighting to keep you away from your actual pain and feelings. And that's the crux of the coaching with me, is like, let's talk to these parts of you that are, at war with each other, or this part that's taken over and caused you to go into this massive addiction spiral, or this other one that's causing you to work till you die. And really, you're not getting the validation you want, because you can only get so much. And then all of a sudden people are just like, yeah, well, we expect you to be the hardest worker, so we're not going to compliment you about it anymore. Just keep doing it. We like it, whatever, and you're just like, but I need this validation. I need these accolades. I need this praise. And you're not going to get it forever, because people aren't going to sit around doing that. They're not going to do that. And then you're just going to be like, I'm the one who works the hardest and I don't get paid enough, or no one cares. No one says anything anymore. And I'm just working so hard and no one cares about me. And then you're just going to be stuck with feeling bad again, So it's really, really important to heal the reasons that we work so hard, or we are addicted to things. And again, you can be addicted to work, right? Workaholism is a thing. So these are extreme things we do to feel good about ourselves. And if we choose to do these things just simply because we love working, or we love exercising, we like to drink sometimes, in moderation or something. And alcohol is poison. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a good thing to do, but there are ways to like enjoy your life. Eat some sweets occasionally, not every day or not all day, so there are ways to still enjoy your life without becoming addicted to things. And they're more representative of your authentic true self than the parts of you that are running the show. Okay. These are subconscious parts, wounds, all kinds of stuff. We have all names, shadow parts. We have lots of names for these things, but withdrawing from substances is so difficult, and it can exacerbate the shame, anxiety, and depression that somebody's already feeling. Because, when you withdraw from substances, you're not on your best behavior. You don't feel good. You don't say the right things. You're in a bad mood. You might be, like it says, more anxious, more depressed. You might feel the shame of what you said or did when you were drinking or on drugs. There's just a lot that goes into that. And it's almost like I want to hide more from the shame I feel from what I've done. So I'm just going to continue taking substances. So that's why it's really hard to get out of this vicious cycling with substances and activities and processes. So once a person is addicted, they are no longer using the substance to feel good. They physically need it at some point. And because there's this like physiological effect on the brain that creates this need instead of this desire to have some fun. It becomes this maladaptive. Initially, it's this adaptive coping. It's an adaptation that we use to relax, to chill out, to feel good, to feel confident. And then later it becomes a maladaptive coping mechanism, because it leads to mental deterioration, increased depression, run-ins with the law, relationship problems, and job troubles, and then death. I mean, death is the thing, right? Like, we're not taking care of our health because we're doing the addictive substances. Let's just use alcohol and drugs. We're doing those things. Food even, right? Because if you're eating comfort foods and they're sugary, and their sugar's poisonous for us, by the way, like pure cane, processed sugar foods. And we don't need a lot of sugar. We need some glucose. We need glucose. So we can get that in a lot of healthy foods. There's lots of natural sugars in foods that we can eat. But anyway, that's another topic. But the point is, sugar itself and the way we consume it in our country of America and other countries as well, to some degree, is poisonous and bad for us. And we can gain a lot of weight. We can lose our teeth. We can get, have diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic illnesses from the foods we eat, right? And of course, alcohol, it's 9 calories per gram of, is that what it is? 9 grams, 9 calories per gram, 4 calories per gram. Sorry, I was a nutrition major and I can't remember this. This is embarrassing. Anyway, it has so many calories that are just not going to be used by the body. So it goes immediately into fat storage, and that increases triglyceride production. And then heart disease. You get heart disease, liver problems, pancreatitis, diabetes. You just have all these different issues that can be caused from the things we consume. Drugs, obviously, no good comes from using the drugs that are on the streets unless you need drugs for like a medical. But even if you need it, if you get addicted to it, it's not going to be good. So we all know this. This is nothing that's new. And, um, you know, the death part comes from the chronic illnesses that are created, or maybe even accidents, drinking and driving, and then, maybe crashing, the run-ins with the law because you could kill someone, you know, you shouldn't be doing drugs because they're illegal and you could get arrested. You could loot and steal or do prostitution. You could just do a lot of things that get you on the other side of where you probably want to be because of the addiction, right? And then you have shame, just shame, shame, shame. And shame is so hard to deal with. And no one wants to face shame because it feels the worst. And then you have that, and then you let everybody down, and everyone's criticizing and saying how worthless you are. You lose your family members because they don't want to be near you. It's just like a whole problem, right? And even though genetic factors greatly contribute to whether a person will develop an addiction in the first place, we also know that environmental factors such as developmental trauma also increase the likelihood for developing an addiction. So when children are exposed to aggressive behavior or abuse, they lack parental supervision. They have more access or availability to drugs or alcohol. They're able to easily experiment with them at young ages. They have poor social skills. There's poverty, sexual abuse, peer pressure or bullying, witnessing violence in the home between caregivers. These things can all cause this toxic stress for a child. And you want to relieve the stress. You want to relieve anything that feels stressful and scary and painful. So you start to use a substance. People often do. It's not everyone by any means, but it's a lot of the population. I think it's like 75% or something, which I'll say in a minute. I'll let you know. I think it's like 75%. I'm going to have to look that up again. But anyway, so people with CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, have high rates of comorbid alcohol and substance use or disorders. Sorry, I can't talk. That would make sense, right? You've experienced something so traumatic, and it could be you were involved in, I just talk about developmental trauma for the most part, but you could be in the middle of a natural disaster or terrorism or sex trafficking or something really, really terrifying, or you're kidnapped, you witness, you're in like a war zone, you witness your house burns down. I mean, that's traumatic, and that's could cause flashbacks. You could have later flashbacks from those experiences, and that is terrifying for a person. And it would make a lot of sense to me. Like, we do a lot of vets that have PTSD who, end up being drug addicts or alcoholics because they just cannot face what they faced in the war zone, right? It's just too extremely terrifying to function. And you can understand why they would do it. You've never maybe been in that kind of situation. Those listening may have, but you may not have ever been. I certainly have not been. I can only imagine how terrifying that would be to come back home and to be completely altered by what I've experienced in the middle of a war zone. I can't even imagine. I mean, yes, I would probably want to seek out as much disconnection and dissociation and numbing out as possible. I would want to escape my reality if I had been in that situation. I can definitely understand this. Those with complex post-traumatic stress disorder are those who have been in the middle of, home environments, developmental trauma, abuse, mental illness from family members, lots of, yelling and chaos and, abuse of all kinds. And they too have flashbacks, emotional flashbacks, times where they remember on some level what happened to them. Even if they try to block it out all the time, it comes back. So they'd want to probably escape with drugs or alcohol as well, because who wants to remember that sexual abuse or that physical abuse that happened to you from your family member, right? Or somebody. And that is, no, people block that out for a reason. It's very, very scary. And if you can't block it out anymore, you're going to want to reach for something that helps you block it out and keeps it out of your awareness. Because if you're not ready to heal it, you want to keep it away. And that's just how it is. And anyone who says otherwise doesn't understand how the brain and body work on trauma. That is just something your body doesn't, feels like it's protecting you and helping you survive. And guess what? I don't think you can do this. I can't. The unconscious parts of myself, my nervous system, most of the parts of my body that function, my brain, almost every level, is underground. It's doing stuff automatically, and I don't have any conscious decision making in it. I can't decide to, I can stop breathing if I choose to. I'm probably going to be forced to breathe again, but I can't stop blinking my eyes. I can't stop breathing. I mean, thank goodness. I mean, people do it and they die, but you normally have to, you normally don't have control over these body systems. And I certainly don't have control over my digestion or anything like that. Right. So, the nervous system, no, I do not have control of my nervous system. If it goes into fight or flight based on something that happens to me, it's doing it without my consent. It's doing it on its own automatically. I can control the way it operates to a degree by the way the things I put into it, the thoughts in my mind that I change. So I'll have different emotional reactions and different emotional regulation or dysregulation. But overall, my nervous system is doing its own thing, and so is yours. That's just how it is. Okay. But because of the chaos from traumatizing homes, the abuse or the neglect, the chaos that was going on probably all the time, the hypervigilance, everything like that, becoming dependent on drugs and substances, I'm sorry, dependent on substances or alcohol or anything like that, is the way, again, a way for the body to regulate itself. It's a way for it to find peace and calm in that chaotic life you're living, or a home environment that you're in, or just environment that you're in. Um, Although it's not a healthy way for the body to calm the nervous system and get that emotional regulation under control, it is a way the body has to do this, to calm it down. And because the body can't heal when it's under duress and has a lot of stress. Body cannot heal when it's stressed. And that has to do with, stress, the adrenaline, cortisol, they are released, and the immune system thinks it's time to go and into some kind of attack mode. It's got to put out some fire somewhere. So it goes putting out fires. It goes up putting out fires in your own body and then destroying your healthy natural tissue rather than an actual invader. But the body doesn't know that it's not under stress. And, trauma and toxic home environments cause just as much stress on the system as if you're being chased by a dragon. Okay. And so your body just is going to do what your body does under that stressful situation. But in that situation, the body can't heal because then the immune system is fighting the thing that's not really there. And then you get sick or you're not able to repair normally because your body can't repair when it's stressed out and doing another job. So if your body's over there handling this foreign invader that's not really a foreign invader, it's you, then when an actual invader comes in, because we have invaders coming in all the time, cancer things come in, um, you know, illnesses, COVID, we'll say, the flu, anything can come in. And then your body is at a lowered, has lowered resources to handle the actual illnesses because it's already handling that stress reaction that you've already had. Because the stress causes the inflammation and it attacks it goes toward the inflammation. Because it's like, oh, something's inflamed. We've got to heal it, right? So it's going toward an inflammation it's going to heal. That's not really an actual true inflammation from a real source. Like you didn't get your leg chomped off by the dragon. Um, so, so then you've got this stress just doing its thing over here with the immune system. And then you don't have time. Your body does not have the ability or the capacity to also heal actual things that need to be healed. And so then you can get sick. So when you're not calm and at peace, your body can't do its job of healing you and repairing. And so, and resting, right? And restoring. It has to do all that stuff. So, um, so then what happens is, you know, your body makes a decision. I like it when she's drinking. I like it when he's eating cupcakes. I like it when she's engaging in sex, gambling, shopping. Because you know what? She feels good. She's got that dopamine hit. She's calm. And then when she's calm, I can do my work. And when I can do my work, she doesn't die. And all your body cares about and your brain cares about is you living. Then it doesn't really, those parts of you don't really care if you're doing it in a healthy way. They just care that you're alive. So even if you're doing the worst things and your methods of getting calm are not healthy and they're addictive, your body doesn't really care. It just wants you to survive, and it's going to do whatever it has to do. So if you have a big craving for heroin or a big craving for a chocolate cake or a big craving for a whole bag of sugar or a craving for just, as much porn as you can get in one night, your body's going to be like, I know that is what he or she does to feel calm. Let's bring it on. Let's crave this bitch. Let's keep pushing the cravings on this one. You know, like when you're trying to stop eating, this food and you're trying to diet and you decide, well, from now on, I'm never going to eat again. Okay, that's very unrealistic, but people sometimes do that. And it does not last because the body's like, you aren't going to survive if you don't eat. So what we're going to do is we're going to overcompensate and we're going to push the cravings for all those things that give you a lot of quick energy so that you can eat and calm down. You can eat and feel better because when you eat, you calm down. Your body's satisfied and it's like, oh, thank you. And you calm down. It doesn't care if you're eating sugar or if you're eating lean protein. It just wants you to feel calm so we can do its job. The body is very selfish that way, and it's for a good reason, but it doesn't care the method that it uses to get us to relax and to calm down. It just does whatever it takes. So as soon as your body and brain are addicted to whatever they're addicted to, that's the way it gets you to calm down and find ease. So shaming people, this is a really big part, shaming yourself or shaming other people for being addicted to things is a waste of time because you don't have control over it. That's why they say it's an illness or a disease. It literally is. It alters your brain. It alters your body in such a way as you don't have control over it. You can make a decision to heal from it. Now you can, and you will have to do things every day, maybe for the rest of your life to stay sober and find other methods that can contribute to your body feeling good and calm and you feeling good about yourself and saying good things to yourself so that you calm down, eating the right things, exercising appropriately and all that. You may have to change your methods, but you can do it. And you may have to take it one day at a time and, never take it for granted that you could become an addict again. There are ways to recover, but once you're in that addictive process and you become an addict, your body will always want that thing or those things that it's always craved in order to get it back to that sort of homeostasis and that balance again. Okay. So, and so I want you to also realize that you don't have control over what your body does. And I said this a little bit ago, but think about the last time you actually had control over your nervous system or your brain. And I'm not talking about your conscious brain because your conscious brain it has thoughts about what you should do. But again, there are other parts of your brain that are actually in charge, not your conscious mind. Your conscious mind only gets to be in charge once it's in alignment with the subconscious mind and the limbic system, which is where the emotions are, emotional responses are, and hormones that contribute to, the emotional effects of what's coming in. But your logical mind kind of goes back online when the other parts have decided they're going to agree. They agree, and then conscious mind goes, oh, okay, yeah. Well, it makes the most sense to be, healthy. Sure, it does. Conscious mind is not stupid. Conscious mind's very smart. And it's right, it's right. But if subconscious and limbic systems are like, nah, I don't really care about healthy. I just want her to not die. So we win, you lose, conscious mind. You want to eat, healthy fruits and vegetables and, lean protein and, you want to exercise and do all that stuff. And that's great. But right now, we don't care about that. We care that she doesn't die. And she hasn't died from smoking 6 packs of cigarettes every single day for 40 years. So we're going to keep doing that. And then conscious mind doesn't have a choice. Okay. That's how that works. So another thing to keep in mind is people are not lazy. People are not stupid. People are not ignorant of what they need to do to be healthy and not addicted, but the brain decides. And that is why it's really, really important to know this, because people are judging people left and right for not being able to lose weight. People in the healthcare industry are so mad at these very overweight people who they can't even help. They don't care about themselves enough to lose weight and they can't move them. It's not fair to this person. This person who is overweight has reasons for being overweight, and they're not to piss you off. I promise you that. They're not to destroy the healthcare institution that we live in. They are doing the best they can with what happened to them. We don't know what happened to them. And there are a lot of bad things that can happen to somebody to cause them to want to eat and put protection on their bodies and stay safe. And that has nothing to do with trying to ruin the healthcare system. I promise you. This person is actively trying on some level, not consciously, but could be is trying to survive and also might be trying not to survive. This person is conflicted. This person has a lot of shame. We don't know what happened to somebody who puts on, starts to weigh 400 pounds. That is not somebody nobody wants to weigh 400 pounds. You can't move. You can't, feel beautiful as you want because you feel like society judges you for the way you look, and society does judge people for how they look. And that's horrible because people have their really, really, really strong reasons, and they have brains that are not allowing, they're sabotaging these people. It's not a conscious choice. Consciously, they want to be healthy and they want to be trim. Everyone does because it's healthy. And also you look better, right? I mean, just you look better because you feel better. I'm not body shaming. I'm saying you feel that you look better when you feel it. Wait, some people love being bigger and that's fine too. But when you're at an extremely overweight range, you're no longer healthy and you can't move as easily. And it just makes you feel bad and it causes damage to your knees, your hips, and it's harder to walk and you breathe heavier. It's not fun and it doesn't feel good. And, no one wants to be that far overweight, okay? And addicted to foods and sugars and everything. It's very easy for us to get sick in our country of America. Anyway, it's very easy for us to get sick because there's sugar in everything. And sugar is very poisonous and very addictive. So, I am a little very passionate about body shame. I'm very passionate about disordered eating and eating disorders and the reasons behind them. And I promise you that no one is trying to make you have a bad day and make your healthcare costs go up because they're overweight. They are struggling from something that happened a long time ago, as are heroin addicts, as are alcoholics, as are sex addicts. Everyone has good reasons. I'm not saying they're smart or they're healthy. They're good reasons. Okay. They might not be the best methods. They're good reasons. There's always a positive intention why our bodies decide to do things. And usually it has to do with being loved, being safe, and belonging. And that's why people do the things they do, because that connection to their heart, that connection to themselves was destroyed at a very young age. And all they're trying to do is be loved. And if food or alcohol makes me feel loved and good enough inside myself and to others for a little while, why not? I'm just going to go and eat as much as I want tonight. I'm going to have the best time of my life just eating the stuff I love to eat, binging out if I need to for a little while, because it's going to make me feel good for a while. I'm going to feel bad later. Stomach's going to hurt and I'm probably going to feel a lot of shame, but I'm in the moment. It makes me feel good. Okay. So there are reasons people do the things they do. And I just really want to passionately, mention this because I find it to be very unfair because it keeps people from healing when they're shamed. And if they come to me and they get help with this, there's shame lessons, and that's good because shame keeps you stuck in the cycling. And so I help you get through the shame, your body shame, your all of your shame, to get to the root of like why you're doing the things you're doing. And then we change it because that's the way you do it. You have to go back to what happened or what created the problem. And the developmental trauma, rooting all that out, helps us see why we do the things we do and change the patterns of what we're doing. And it's very healing, and it's just amazing and miraculous. And I love it so much. But the thing is, when we shame each other for the way we look or the way people do things, that's not going to help. That's just going to make people do it more because they want to hide more. Shame is a hider. It makes you hide. Okay. That's my lecture on that. So, now another thing is addicts sometimes have co-occurring mental illnesses, and that also contributes to trying to find the peace inside themselves, because many people who have mental illnesses also have really intense inner critics, really intense intrusive thinking, and telling them that they're not worthy or they should have done this, and they have a lot of shame and they just have a lot of mixed thoughts, and there's just a lot going on. There's a huge abandonment wound for some. There's, again, shame is a huge one for everyone, but when you feel so unlovable, so abandoned, and that mental illness is driving a lot of that, you're going to want to dissociate. You're going to want to drink, numb out, and escape. You're going to want to eat to escape. You're going to smoke to escape. You just want to escape because it's horrible having all of those messages that are so clear. I mean, many of us who don't have that mental illness part, have the intrusive thoughts all the time, but they're kind of in the background and we kind of don't always know they're there. But when you have more of a mental illness, it's kind of more in the forefront of your mind a lot of the time, and it's very hard to not have them there, right? And so when you drink, they go away or they calm down or they're quieted, and that helps you feel like in control again. So again, there are reasons why people do the things they do. Okay, there's always a reason for why we do the things we do. And it doesn't ever have to do with, I want to be, a loser in society. Never, ever, ever is it that. I promise. So also, traumatized children don't have a strong connection in their corpus callosum, this in between the right and left hemisphere of the brain. They don't have a strong, it's not connected well, it doesn't develop very well and connect. So then you get this, hair trigger reaction emotionally in your right hemisphere where the emotions are, and the logical part of your brain isn't connecting well, so it can't make sense of this emotional, storm that's coming in, right? From like the trauma in the home or the abuse. It doesn't know. So what happens is, the emotional side can't really, decipher and evaluate what this emotional significance is when this information is coming in. And it's activated, and it leads to this overwhelm and a need to dissociate because you don't know what it was going on. You don't have any way to evaluate it, right? You can't figure it out. And so, the logical part of the brain, that left side, goes completely offline when you're activated emotionally. You know how people say, oh, once I'm calmed down, I can think clearly. That's right. Once you are less emotionally, dysregulated, and you've calmed down, you can think logically. But often for trauma victims, children who are going through trauma, they don't have that capacity because they're not calming down enough. They don't have the connections made, and so they can't logic out what's going on. And it's a real thing. Okay, it's a real thing. And so when you have this much emotion, going on all the time because of your trauma or abuse or neglect, and you don't have any way to like figure it out. Plus, when you're little, you don't have language development right away. And if you don't have the left side of your brain helping with language development, you won't know what language to associate with this. And then you won't know what's going on, you won't know how to figure it out. And if you don't know how to figure something out, you dissociate. Again, your brain doesn't think in grays. It needs a black or a white. It needs a yes or a no. It needs a this or a that. It needs an answer. And if it doesn't have an answer, it's like, then shut her down, move it out, escape, do whatever you can to numb this one out, because we can't do our job in this body if she's freaking out all the time. Make her dissociate, get her to calm down, right? We talked about that already, and they just can't do it. If you don't have that development of the brain parts like that, you don't have that connection there. You've got two parts of the brain doing two different things. Okay. And then you can see how people kind of get into split personalities, dissociative identity disorder, things like this, because their parts of their brains are not connected because of their trauma. I hope I'm making this really clear how, you know, how impactful trauma is to addiction, and how it's really, really a waste of time and energy and everything to be anything but compassionate toward people who have addictions. And I don't care what addiction it is. If you can understand developmentally and physiologically what happens to destroy a person's brain and nervous system disconnection from the brain, you might be able to understand that this is not a choice. This is a survival instinct to become addicted. Okay. This is what it is. And there's actual research, psychological, scientific research that proves people who are addicted are not trying to do it to ruin life. They're not even wanting to ruin their own life, but this is the only way their system knows how to calm them down. Okay. So I just really want to keep saying, like, stressing the importance of compassion. I'm not saying hang out with somebody who's addicted. They're hard to hang out with. They don't think reasonably. They're not able, they have a lot of internal stress and strife, anxiety, depression, victimization. They have a lot going on that makes, and shame, and they have a lot going on that makes it really, really hard to be around them. I do know that they need help. I'm happy to walk them to the nearest rehab, but to hang out with them is hard. But to judge them is not, I mean, that's just a separate thing. You don't want to hang out with people who, no matter who they are, addict or not, who don't treat you well, or you can't really interface with or interact with very well. You don't want to hang out with those people because it hurts your life. It makes you feel chaotic and bad and out of ease and peace, right? And our nervous systems don't need to be dysregulated by people who we can't interact well with. So stay away from them unless they ask for support, and then get them to a place where somebody can help them. But shaming them and judging and not having compassion, don't add those layers of that to those poor people. They're already going through their own hell, I promise you, every single day of their lives. Every single day. I mean, think of Matthew Perry. He was struggling for so many years with addiction. That man had a beautiful family, as far as I know. I don't know what kind of trauma he may or may not have had. Maybe he didn't have any. Maybe he just went to Hollywood and he did the thing that people do. I'm not really sure. I didn't read his book, but he had to take like 51 Vicodin a day just to function, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of, like, I need this to function at baseline. That is really, really sad. He didn't want to be an addict. He didn't want to be, but it was too late. By the time he got there, he was there, and getting away from that was very difficult. So these people have a lot of problems already. We don't need to shame them and judge them on top of it. Please don't feel contempt for them. I know it hurts to see your loved ones with addictions. I understand that very well, but there are reasons people do what they do. And about 2/3 of all addicts have previously experienced physical or sexual abuse as children. Now, can you imagine if you've had a physical or sexual abuse? You can imagine, even if you don't want to think about it. I'm sorry if I'm triggering things here, but really, it's for the compassion part. Trauma has a strong correlation to later addiction, and that is just a fact. So if we can just recognize that, well, the thing is, we all have parts, okay? Parts is a big part of a tool I use. It's a big part of my programs with my clients. Parts work is a psychological tool that we use that was developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz, amazing man, and back in the 70s. And it it's, based on family systems theory, which is a psychological um, theory. And it talks about how we have all these different parts of our families that get labeled in addicted families or narcissistic families, and there's like a golden child, scapegoat, there's the lost child, and there's the enabler, like is usually like the partner of the addict or the narcissist or whoever's the most traumatizing one. There's like the enabling one who stays there codependently, um, defending and protecting the addict. So the addict or the narcissist, who can also be an addict, um, yeah, can stay in power doing what they're doing. And then there's always like a black sheep of the family who's the scapegoat who gets blamed when they want to change the dynamic or call out truth. There's like the golden child who can never do wrong, gets all the good grades and does all the good things and makes the family look normal and good. And there's a lost child who's just forgotten completely. And then they all have their own problems. And this is based on family systems. So then we have something called an internal family system, which is our individual internal parts parts started forming inside of us. And this is not like you're schizophrenic or anything like that at all. It's not pathological. It's actually very good to notice these things, because when your parts come up, they did it as a child in service of your survival. So you might have a people pleaser part. You might have a workhorse, a taskmaster, a serving part, a smart part, a brainiac. There's hundreds, thousands probably of parts that people can have. And there's also parts of us, and those are called manager parts. And then we have firefighter parts, which they'll just go and, hose down the whole house. Even if the whole house gets ruined, they don't care. It's in service of your survival. So we have firefighter parts, which could be like the drug addict, the sex fiend, the one who wants to sleep all the time, the one who wants to commit suicide, the one who, you know, numbs us out in whatever ways, eats too much, has eating disorders. And these kinds of parts, as you can see, you have these manager parts that were like perfectionistic, and they want to make make the person, you, look great to the world. And then we have this other polarized part that's kind of the drug addict, who doesn't give a crap if you look good to the world, doesn't really give a crap at all, has no you know, moral conditions, like no moral, righteousness at all. It doesn't care if you die. It doesn't care if hurt someone. It doesn't care if you hurt yourself. It will drink. It will do this. It will fight. It will do things. It usually doesn't fight because it's a shutdown kind of in your nervous system. It shuts you down and escapes you and numbs you out. But then you have these other, codependent or this taskmaster. And basically you could have one or both of these types of parts, even there's many parts subcategorically, but there can be one that's always in charge, and she's like the one who's always showing up with her hair back in a bun and her glasses on, and she's like the librarian. I call mine Claire because she reminds me of a Claire for some reason. No offense to Claire's, but she's very particular in the way she does everything, and she has to look perfect doing it, and her house is perfect, and her T's are crossed. Do T's get crossed? Yeah, T's get crossed, I's get dotted, and she does everything very well. And the whole world thinks she's just amazing at everything. She's almost like Martha Stewart to me, And then we have the other guy over here, the one that doesn't care if you're drunk all day, every day. I don't give a crap. Now, you can have one of these in charge all the time, like your Claire. You can have your Martha Stewart lady, or you can have this other guy who doesn't give a crap if you live or die in charge, and they will, one will take over and just dominate the system, the internal family system. Or you can have both of them. You can have all day long, I go to work and I'm a workaholic and I show everybody I'm so awesome at everything. And at night, I drink alcohol until I pass out every single night. And you could have both of them, and they're polarized. You see, you have the workhorse, and then you have the, I don't give a crap one, right? They're fighting because the workhorse is embarrassed that the fighting one, is trying to like make her look bad, right? And then the other one's like, I don't really care. You need to chill out, like Claire lady. You need to chill out and calm down. You need to drink some more and just chill out. And what they're doing is they're protecting the person from these exiled parts that happen when the child was abandoned as a little child. feels abandoned, feels shame, feels afraid, all these vulnerable feelings. And these parts up here that are fighting, they're just causing all this havoc so that you can't feel your pain, right? If you could feel your pain, you could heal your pain. But these parts of you are like, nope, we're not letting that happen, because what if that part takes over and she's crying at work all day, or she's wants to like yell at people, or she says something stupid and she's so shameful, right? So these parts are like, no way. So when we work together, you and me, I help you find these parts and we help them relax, give them different things to do, different methods for getting your jobs done in life. And you can come back more into your self energy. Your self energy is your authentic self. And it's like your soul, your higher self, your core self, or authentic self, whatever you want to call it. It's the part of you that's you, that isn't affected by all these parts that are going crazy, because these parts do extreme things. The ones who are addicts do extreme addictive things. You don't want that, right? Yourself doesn't want that. Yourself doesn't want to die from doing these addictive things. And then you have the workhorse, which, great, you want to look good at work, but you really have to kill yourself working 70 hours, 90 hours a week. I mean, people in Japan go and they fall asleep in the middle of the road. I don't even know if they're dead. I feel like they just fell asleep because they're so tired, but I've just seen pictures on Facebook or something. And I think that's horrible. That's just horrible. We're killing ourselves. For what? What are we trying to prove? All we're trying to do is run away from our pain, right? More of us feel our pain and realize that we're never going to have the same pain that we had when we were little. It's never going to be that way again. It's going to be scary to look at it, maybe. But once we look at it, we can do something about it. Once we're aware of it, we can do something about it to change it. You're very resourceful. You're very resilient, or you wouldn't be here now. In this world, at this time, if you're still standing and you're still living, you're very resilient and you have a huge, massively great survival instinct. The thing is the survival instinct killing you? Is it pushing you into the edge because it's trying to keep you going, and proving all the time? That's what we want to know. And so there are reasons that we have addictions, guys. And none of those reasons is because we're bad people and that we want to be addicts and that we want to do the wrong things. None of it has to do with that. It has to do with our pain. It has to do with our wounding, our trauma, the abuse, the neglect that we suffered from as children. And it follows us until we do something about it. So if you want to do something about it, you can always find me. I am really happy to help you. And if not, please find somebody. Okay. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a book. I do believe that as just a coach, I will say the transformation you make in coaching is huge, because coaching isn't just about processing, talking about the same thing over and over again. And therapy is more like that. And that's fine because you need that for a while. But trauma coaching is more like, okay, we know what happened because we're aware of it. Sometimes there's some conscious beliefs that are stuck in there based on our trauma, and we want to get those up and out and reframe, change the neural pathways so that your nervous system can calm down, because now you're on a pathway of knowing you're worthy rather than unworthy, because your trauma makes you feel like you're unworthy. And it holds you accountable. I give you action steps, which by the way are not like huge ones. I will never do that to somebody, because if you have a lot of them or they're too hard, nobody's going to do them. And then you're going to feel like a failure. Whole point of coaching is it's a short-lived thing. My programs are 60 days. Okay. Short-lived thing that, one and done. You're doing this and then I'm kicking you out of the nest. You can handle your own life. You don't need me. You are the expert of your own life. But if you need help for a while, I'm going to give you some things to do. Your life is going to shift and change. Your mindset will shift and change, and that will change the course of your life, the way you think about things. And that becomes your new normal, your new automatic, right? Where your brain and your nervous system are doing different things that create calm and peace inside of you rather than chaos, havoc, stress, and illness. So please find me if you want some help with this. If you're actively addicted to alcohol or drugs, I will not help you with that, because I'm not an addiction counselor. But if you're past that and you're trying to stay in sobriety and figure out where this came from, what the motivation is behind your addictions and your addictive processing and compulsions, I can help you with that. That's my job. My job isn't to do any mental health, suicide prevention, or suicide ideations, I guess, or active addictions. Is that mental? Yeah. But because the licensed therapists help you with that, okay, and psychiatrists and psychologists can help you with all those things. But my job is like, okay, when you've already kind of gotten past that, we can work on. Okay, so anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you to see why addictions are not done on purpose, right? It's just it's based in trauma usually, most of the time, I think, and it's not a cause for contempt and judgment. It's a cause for compassion and realizing that the parts of us that take over and the way our brains, the way our nervous system bodies work, keeps us in survival mode so that we won't remember. The body does hold on to all of your trauma, right? The Body Keeps the Score is an amazing book that I recommend to everyone in the universe to read. And it really shows how, your body holds all of your trauma. And, when we heal the bodies, when we heal the body and we heal the somatic, you know, conditions there that hold our bodies or hold our trauma there, it's easier to heal our trauma. And we realize that we've stored this, our bodies are sometimes considered our subconscious, right? So, we think it's in our brain, but it's in our bodies, right? And so our bodies are holding on to it and they're not really letting us see. We can get physically sick. Like we can have physical problems that happen, like stomach pains. And we're like, oh, this must have been the stress I'm under or the food I ate. Well, yeah, it's probably maybe the food you ate and the stress. If not, it's probably just, you got some stress because of the way you think about yourself based on your trauma and the way you're doing things and the way you're eating because of the trauma. And that stress and that pain in your body is a symptom. It's a little warning sign of like, oh, I should do something about this. I shouldn't just ignore this. It's probably going to turn into something bad. Maybe I'll get an ulcer or a stomach, some kind of digestive problem, or my gallbladder might have to be taken out, or stomach cancer, or pancreatic cancer, or pancreatitis. I mean, liver problems. The physical problems do stem from the trauma because it stems from all that stress that we have when our nervous system is dysregulated. And so it's really, really key to get some help with this. I can say this every episode and I really shouldn't. But anyway, I was going to point out that I have sun here, as you probably can tell, for those of you who are seeing me on video. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say for now. I hope this helps. And please let me know if you have any questions. If you want to work together, please find me. I'm at bloomingintoyou.com. You can schedule a discovery call with me and we can see if I can help you and see if it would work to do coaching. Coaching is so good for moving past the trauma. And the reason is because I give you tools that help you change the way your neural pathways work and the way everything fires differently in your brain. And it becomes your new normal and automatic to have a calmer nervous system and to feel better, think better about yourself. And when you think better, you feel better. And so your nervous system doesn't have to get emotionally dysregulated anymore. If you're not sending off the signal that you're worthless and you're now knowing you're worthy, then you have a totally different interaction in yourself, to yourself, and then to your life as a result. Because when you feel good, your life starts to show you back that you feel good. Okay. So anyway, I hope this helps. If you're in active addiction, I do not work with actively addictive people. That is for licensed addictions counselors or psychiatrists, psychologists. If you have mental illness or you are having suicidal ideations, I also do not work with you, but I will work with you if you are in recovery, if your mental illness is under control, medicated, or under control in some way, and if you are not suicidal. But if you have a propensity toward addictions or suicidal thoughts, we can work together because I can help you root out what it may have contributed to or caused some of this to happen. And we may find out they don't really even have a mental illness. You might just have had some of the symptoms. You may decide that I don't really need to drink anymore. I kind of feel good now. And that would be great, right? Because that would be really amazing to also have the recovery, the AA or whoever you're going to help you recover if you did rehab. And then to also have the rooted out reasons that you started the addictions in the first place under control. That's just going to help even more. So, and yeah, so I hope this helps you guys. And, as always, I'm here. I'm here if you want me, if you want to say anything, let me know. And I hope you have a wonderful day and we'll see you soon.